Let's be real, Stranger Things is more than just a TV show. It's a full-blown cultural event that completely changed the game for streaming. But what's wild is that before it became this global phenomenon, it was just an idea that pretty much nobody wanted. So today, we're going to uncover the complete story of how Stranger Things went from the rejection pile to conquering the world.
This right here was the original vision from the creators, Matt and Ross Duffer. This was their whole pitch. They wanted to make a love letter to all the 80s classics they grew up obsessed with. The goal was a story that felt super emotional, really cinematic, and of course, absolutely terrifying. And that, right there, is the real mystery, isn't it? The journey from a simple pitch document to this massive global franchise, it's almost as unbelievable as the story of Hawkins, Indiana itself.
So, to really get how it all happened, we're going to break down the 5 key chapters of the Stranger Things story. We'll start with its rocky beginnings, then jump into the plot that got us all hooked. After that, we'll look at how it was made, its explosion into pop culture, and finally, the incredible legacy it's still building today.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. The rejection pile. Seriously. Before Netflix came along, the Duffer Brothers' idea was one of the coldest pitches in all of Hollywood.
What's just incredible is how completely the networks missed the point. The Duffers pitched this thing to around 15 different places, and every single one said no. And the problem was always the same. They kept saying you can't have kids as the main characters in a show that's meant for adults. They were told to either turn it into a kids show or, and you gotta hear this, just cut the kids out of the story entirely and make it a detective show about Hopper. Can you even imagine Stranger Things without the kids? No way.
And then came the game changer. In early 2015, Netflix, who was still kind of building up its big original shows, took a huge risk. They didn't just order a pilot episode, they bought the entire season up front. And, this is the most important part, they gave the Duffer Brothers total creative freedom, the one thing every other network had refused to do.
So, with Netflix backing them, the Duffers were finally free to tell the story they always wanted to. So, what exactly is that story that got millions of us completely obsessed? Let's take a quick trip inside the Upside Down.
Okay, so at the very heart of the series is this idea, the Upside Down. You can think of it like a dark, twisted, decaying echo of our world. It's full of monsters, and it was accidentally ripped open by some very shady government experiments happening right under the sleepy, normal town of Hawkins.
And as you can see, this threat just gets bigger and bigger every single year. It all kicks off in '83 with just one kid, Will Byers, disappearing, but pretty soon the whole town is in danger from these terrifying monsters, like the hive mind Mind Flayer and of course the super powerful Vecna. Each season just perfectly ramps up the stakes, all building towards one final epic showdown to stop Hawkins from getting completely swallowed by the Upside Down.
But the story is only half of it. The real magic of Stranger Things is in how they told that story. So let's look at the specific choices that made this 80s world feel so real, so authentic.
So here's a fun fact. The show wasn't even called Stranger Things at first. The original pitch was for a show called Montauk, and it was supposed to be set in New York and based on some real-world conspiracy theories. But by moving the story to the fictional town of Hawkins, Indiana, the creators gave themselves way more freedom to build their own world and their own mythology. And the title itself, Stranger Things, was picked because it sounded just like a classic Stephen King book, like Needful Things.
The show's DNA is just this perfect mix of influences. You've got that sense of childhood wonder and kids on bikes from Steven Spielberg, you've got the creepy synth music and dread from John Carpenter, and that surreal horror vibe from David Lynch. It's all built on a foundation of Stephen King's small-town horror stories and Cold War paranoia. But the Duffers also pulled from Japanese anime like Akira and even horror video games like Silent Hill to create a look and feel that's truly one of a kind.
And they really built that authentic 80s feel from the ground up. For casting, they auditioned almost 1,000 kids. And to do it, they had them read lines from the ultimate 80s kids movie, Stand By Me. The music, well, it became iconic overnight, with that synth score that felt like it was pulled right out of the era. They also focused on using practical effects whenever they could, even building a real animatronic Demogorgon. And that famous title sequence? Yep, directly inspired by the bold, simple fonts you'd see on old Stephen King paperbacks.
So, with all these perfect pieces in place, the show dropped on July 15, 2016. And it wasn't just a hit, it was an absolute explosion.
The audience growth was just insane. By the time Season 3 came out, it completely shattered Netflix's viewing records. We're talking over 40 million households watched it in just the first 4 days.
The show hadn't just found an audience, it had found a massive, global one.
And it wasn't just us watching at home, critics loved it too. The show has stayed incredibly popular with critics through its whole run. It launched with a mind-blowing 97% on Rotten Tomatoes for season 1. And honestly, it's super rare for any show to keep up that kind of quality for so long.
You know, nothing proves the show's powerful connection with fans quite like the story of Barb. She was a pretty minor character who disappeared early in season 1, but audiences just rallied around her online. The whole Justice for Barb movement got so big that it actually earned the actress, Shannon Purser, an Emmy nomination. It was proof that this show's fan base had some serious real-world power.
And the show's cultural impact even changed the music industry. Key scenes in the show literally brought decades-old songs roaring back to the top of the charts. You had Should I Stay or Should I Go in season 1, but season 4 took it to a whole other level, making Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill a global #1 hit almost 40 years after it first came out. Just amazing. So with all this success, all this cultural impact, Stranger Things was always going to become something more than just a TV show. It was on its way to becoming a true global franchise. And the world of Hawkins has just kept expanding in every direction you can think of. There's an animated series on the way, a smash hit prequel play in London, a whole library of comics and books that explore side stories, plus video games, board games, and so much merchandise that it has become a retail powerhouse all on its own. And of course, the show has been showered with awards, including a huge one from the Screen Actors Guild for its incredible cast. You know, it is not an exaggeration at all to say that Stranger Things became the flagship series for Netflix. It proved that one risky, original idea could become the face of an entire streaming empire.
Which brings us to a final thought here. The success is obvious, but the why is still so fascinating to think about. In our modern age of endless shows and binge-watching, what was the secret ingredient in this mix of friendship, monsters, and 80s nostalgia that made it connect so deeply with all of us and become one of the most beloved shows of all time?